In this slideshow presentation, I will be talking about the violence in Colombia and its portrayal in art. The questions we will be discussing today are: to what extent has the violence in Colombia desensitized the people's humanity, as well as the question of what do artists such as Carlos Castro, Juan Manuel Echevarria, and Doris Salcido suggest about the different perspectives through their works. And in this case, the different perspectives that we'll be talking about are the perspective of the people who have and who have not been desensitized by this violence. We will first start with an excerpt from Our Lady of the Assassins, a novel by Fernando Vallejo. It reads, Pedro Justo Berrio, the old governor, around here it's customary for them to last only months. They do it for each other in their rapine lusts, in their bureaucratic greed. Opposite the great leader there stands, in all its loony excess, the overhead railway, unfinished and converted down below into a den of thieves and beggars. They did well. If they hadn't robbed the province, others would have. And he who cared not for impunity, let him not breathe, let him go on his way without looking, holding his nose. Some rob and others get robbed. Some kill and others get killed. That's the way it is. Everything was within the bounds of the most normal normality, life continuing along its course in Medellin. This excerpt is also able to answer the first question we posed. It is a perfect example that demonstrates exactly how common violence has gotten in Colombia and how numb individuals have become. You could be walking down the street and you could have witnessed someone being murdered or robbed, but you would not bat your eye or even think twice about what you had just witnessed. Obviously, not everyone has gone this numb towards any act of violence, but because it has been going on for so long, it has led to a majority of the population to feel this way. The common mindset is to now view something as common and normal when in reality it is not, and this can be illustrated through the following works of art. We will be discussing 3 works of art from Carlos Castro, starting with this one called Cosecha, which means harvest. At first glance, this just seems like a piece of corn, but upon closer look you realize that the kernels are made up of human molars. Using the teeth is Castro's way of representing all the victims of violence in Colombia. He is trying to show that no matter who these molars belong to, all the individuals have met the same fate because of ongoing conflict. This ties into the idea of how a majority of Colombians have become desensitized to all the violence, mainly because it can give a look into how these individuals see violence. When they see any violent act, they see it as something very normal and ordinary, almost like how this piece of art is first seen. But if they were to really think about what they were seeing, they would be seeing a completely different image. This idea is also portrayed in the following works by Castro. Here we have a piece called Capilla Blanca, which means White Chapel. It is an exhibit that has placed a police van inside of a chapel, and the inside of the police van has been made to look similar to a confession box. Similar to Cosecha, this piece was created in order to further demonstrate how much violence has changed the perspective of a majority of the Colombian population. A police van is not the most comforting place to be in, but Castro's has made it so that the inside looks more inviting and welcoming. In Our Lady of the Assassins, before the assassins would murder anyone, they would go to church and pray for protection, and this can tie into this work of art. By making the inside of the van similar to a confession box, it is almost visualizing the scene in the novel. Those who commit crimes are not arrested and thrown in jail, but instead go to church in order to protect themselves. What Castros is also trying to demonstrate to this exhibit is also the idea of numbness from Colombians. The same idea of how on first look you do not notice anything wrong with what you see, but with a closer inspection you can find many details that should not be there. The final piece from Castro that we will be analyzing is Hijo de Dios, or Son of God. Pictured here are two different angles in order to give a better visual. What this can be interpreted in two different ways. The skeleton, at first glance, looks as if it is bowing down and praying, which would make sense considering the title. Upon closer look, it seems as if the skeleton is in a crouched and ready to attack position, and this can be interpreted from the fact that its head is looking straight as opposed to the floor, and the fact that it is placed on all fours and not on its knees. Another detail that is important is the fact that the skeleton has a tail, something which humans should not have. Including a tail makes the skeleton seem more beastly than human, which could tie in to those who commit crimes and acts of violence. The interpretation that this statue could be praying also ties into the previous piece, Whitechapel, as well as the novel section that was mentioned. Those who commit violence praying for protection could be idealized in the skeleton. On first glance, this piece looks like a normal skeleton, similar to how people walking down the street would see others as just normal individuals. But when you look closer, you see that the small details that make the skeleton look more aggressive and beastly, similar to how you could spot some details on actual people who might turn out to be assassins or robbers. Noviembre 7 y 8, or November 7th and 8th by Doris Salcedo, ties into the second perspective from the question that we are trying to answer. Whereas Castros was creating art that could be seen through a numb individual's eyes, Salcedo created a piece of art that forces you to see the reality of what the violence in Colombia has done. This piece of art is a representation of the events that happened in 1985, when a group of Colombian guerrillas stormed the Palace of Justice and held the Supreme Court justices and hundreds of others hostages at the orders of Pablo Escobar. For every death that occurred, Salcedo strung down a chair from the roof of the Palace of Justice at the exact time that the death occurred. Unlike Castro's pieces, where there was either two interpretations of his works or a not initially noticeable detail, Salcedo's work is clear and straight to the point. She doesn't allow for those who view this exhibit any open interpretations because she wants to clearly demonstrate exactly how bad violence has gotten in Colombia. Yet, because a majority of the population has gotten so used to turning a blind eye to anything that does not involve them, many did not look twice at this exhibit, which only serves to give a clearer understanding of this desensitization. Pieces similar to this work to tug on the emotions of those who either live outside of Colombia or those who are part of the minority who still see all this violence clearly. We will look at two video clips of individuals who are a part of the minority of Colombia who have not gone numb to this violence. Here is Luzmila Palacio singing this song composed by her, having been forcefully displaced from Huardo, Choco, Colombia.
En Colombia el hecho es masivo, no se respeta al niño ni al mayor, al anciano lo echan al olvido y a los pobres nos tratan con horror, al anciano lo echan al olvido y a los pobres nos tratan con horror. Ay, jurado, no me hagas más sufrir, que me muero de dolor y no puedo resistir. Ay, jurado, no me hagas más sufrir, que me muero de dolor y no puedo resistir. Tú eres rico porque tienes oxígeno, tu madera y también por tu folclore.
And here is Domingo Mena singing the song composed by him, having witnessed the massacre of Boyoja, Choco, Colombia.
¿Cómo está mi pueblo? Toda la casa cerrada, la habitante Bella Vista ya se encuentran desplazadas. La FARC con la autodefensa y ellos dos estaban peleando. La FARC lanzó una pipeta y cayó dentro de la iglesia. Lo que hicieron con mi pueblo, por Dios, no tiene sentido. Mata a tantos inocentes sin haber ningún motivo. Yo te suplico, ay Dios mío, porque lo da este castigo. Mi pueblo no se merece que mueran viejos y niños.
These two clips are a part of a longer video named Boca de Ceniza, Mouths of Ash, by Juan Manuel Echevarria. In the 15-minute video, 7 Colombians sing into the camera songs that they have composed after surviving massacres. Echevarria's work speaks to the pervasiveness and the frightening normality of violence in Colombia after 50 years of civil war. By turning his camera to the blind spots of the social fabric of Colombia, Echevarria created a record of violence everywhere. Similar to Salcedo, Echevarria has created a piece of art that forces you to see the truth in violence that has taken over Colombia, not allowing for any other possible interpretation. Overall, in this presentation, we have seen how 3 different artists used their art in order to demonstrate the events of Colombia in a perspective from 2 different groups. Castro's using the perspective of the majority, while Salcedo and Echevarria utilized a stronger voice of those from the minority. Thank you for watching this presentation.